Good morning, Team Wilpers athletes. Coach Lorri Lee Lown here, and I just want to say happy Friday. Good morning. I'm super excited to be here today. Every week I think, what am I going to talk about? And then someone gives me inspiration. So today I want to say thank you to Marlon because she gave me some inspiration for today, my topic. Marlon Carlson posts all his graphs and analysis and comparison. And as I said, he inspired me for today's topic, which is awesome. Because sometimes I write my notes at 6 a.m., believe it or not, because I do my best thinking in the morning. Anyways, here we are, going into our final week of the challenge. And I know some of you are getting fatigued. And I wanted to share some thoughts with you about that and about how we benchmark next week again. So starting with some shout outs. First I had Marlon, of course. And Malaysia Walker, thank you. It's interesting because we're looking at comparison a little bit today. And like almost everything in the coaching world, the answer is it depends, right? So comparison can be great. And it can also be the thief of joy. But Malaysia was talking about sharing her progress in the long term from a Power Zone class that we did in this challenge from 2023. And one of the things that, in addition to the fact that she saw a great improvement, one of the things that she commented on was how her zone 3 now was her endurance zone then, or vice versa. Anyways, and she also, what I thought was so important was realize that now, she recognized now that the recovery is just as important as the work in the intervals. And that was something she didn't realize 2 years ago. So thank you. You make my coach heart proud for that lesson. And then I have another shout out, Ashley Cole. Ashley Cole shared some photos and a milestone with us, and it was kind of buried in a couple other posts. And I just want to say, Ashley, congratulations. She's had a huge transformation in her life. She's lost over 100 pounds, and she did her longest outdoor ride ever, which was 35 miles. So a good solid ride there. And you shared some really beautiful photos, and I appreciate that. One of the things I love about riding outside is capturing the things that I see. Because it's so different than being inside, right? There's scenery, and you can smell the cookies baking from the bakery or the bacon at the campsite, and you can hear the birds and the ocean and all the other things. So riding outside can be very special, and thank you for sharing that. Just a couple of training tips today, and I see a few of you there. Hello, Maggie and Amy and Will and anyone else who I can't see. As you've probably noticed, when we are recording, we can't actually see everyone who is here or the comments. So flying a little bit blind, but that's okay. So training tips. My training tip this week came from Marlon. And my tip is this: every ride cannot be a PR, a personal record, a personal best. Life doesn't work that way. And I was thinking of quotes. I was like, there's got to be some awesome quote about this. And so, of course, I went to Gemini on Google, which is their AI, and I wrote in, every ride is not a PR. And what did it say to me? First of all, it had to give me two options. One was personal record and the other was public relations. But we know this is not about public relations. This is about our athletic performance. So AI said this: the statement, every day cannot be a PR, means it's not realistic or healthy to expect to achieve a personal best every time you train or engage in an activity. In the context of workouts, attempting a PR too frequently can lead to injury, burnout, and technique breakdown. So see, AI agrees with me. We don't need coaches, right? We just need AI. No, not true. We'll talk about that too. And then it goes on to say, what are the physiological limitations of trying to PR all the time? Well, the body needs time to adapt and recover. Pretty smart, right? We this is not linear. We need to go up to go down and to go down to go up. So pushing for a PR every day, especially with heavy weights or intense exercises, can overstress muscles and joints, leading to injuries, right? When we get fatigued, we make mistakes. You ride outside, you get fatigued, you might crash your bike. You're a runner, you get fatigued, you might sustain an injury to a joint, like a knee. So yes, there are physiological limitations. Mental fatigue, this is big. And as a coach, reading the subtext is super important when we see comments from our athletes. So mental fatigue, constantly aiming for a PR, can create unnecessary pressure and anxiety, making workouts less enjoyable and potentially hindering progress. So back to the idea that if it's not fun, we won't do it. And at some point we're going to break. I talked about that a little bit last week, right? Our nervous system does not appreciate being in a high level of stress for long periods of time. So super important. The mental fatigue of training is probably one of the greatest indicators that we need a little break. What else did AI tell me? Plateaus are normal. Hey, we know that. We've heard that, right? You are not going to PR all the time. It's normal to hit a plateau in your training. Expecting to PR every day means you're not accounting for natural fluctuations in your performance and the need for periods of lower intensity or volume. So all things that we know, good training principles. And the last point that AI told me was focus on consistency. And I've said this over and over again. Consistency is key. A more sustainable approach involves focusing on consistent training with a mix of challenging and easier sessions. Sounds like our training plans, right? We go hard, we go easy. We have a cycle that's hard, like this one. And later in the year, we're going to have a cycle that's a little more endurance-based, which is going to help you reap the benefits from all the hard training. So rather than always trying to break records, we want challenging and we want easier sessions. So progress is not linear. And I think that is a super important point. We know it in the back of our mind, but we forget it. And woo, I think we just had a little earthquake. Sorry, everything just shook. Either that or a truck drove by. But I think it was a little earthquake. So those of you who've never experienced one, now you have. I was thinking about this morning. What are the things in life that are not linear? And I was thinking about this. Weight loss. For anyone who has gone through a significant weight loss, you see a drop, you see a drop, you see a drop, and all of a sudden you see a blip up. And you're like, oh my God, it's not happening anymore. And then you go down and you go down and you go down. You go up again and you go down and you go down. So that's a normal fluctuation. The stock market, real estate prices, can we talk about those? Right? If you were to look at your investment plan every day, you would go nuts. But we're looking at that long-term trend. Trends are super important, not every point on a graph. And then I was thinking about a plant. I have this crazy plant back here that is growing these weird things. I don't even know what it is. And I was thinking about gardens and plants and seasonal things, and plants don't just grow and grow and grow. They grow and they have seasons where they flower and they have seasons where they die away. And except in California, everything grows year round, but it's a little weird here. But we do have different plants in different seasons, right? And so the same thing for that. And I think we could probably each think of a handful of examples of how life is not linear, right? So, yeah, so we're looking at that long-term trend, not the single points. And there are reasons in seasons for cycles. In training, we use a tool, and I know we've talked about this before a bit, called Training Peaks. And Training Peaks has a function called Performance Manager. And what it will show you, you can choose your time frame, and you can see these graphs. And it will show you your ramp rate. How much are you improving each week? We don't want it to be too much, right? A really fast ramp rate leads to injury. It leads to fatigue. It leads to burnout. So we want to be very controlled in that. And if we do have big jumps, we want to make sure that they're for short periods of time. So that might be an intense training block. But in Performance Manager, what you'll see, if someone is following a good training plan, is that same graph. I should have drawn one for you. That same graph where I gain a little and then I back off. And I gain a little and I back off. That's what we call our cutback week, right? And so in order to absorb all this fitness, all this work that we've been doing, what do we have to do? Take that little break, right? Take the recovery in the intervals. Take the rest days. Take the time between training blocks to absorb some fitness. So that's why we have our cutback weeks. That's why we don't keep ramping up forever. That was a question too. I was like, well, why do we not keep ramping up forever? Because we can't. We physically can't. Training is stress. And when we have stress, we have to back off. We just can't sustain that. Bodies are not made that way. Cars are not made that way. Any kind of engine or mechanical thing is not made that way. So we eventually have to take a break because we get to our capacity. And then after I wrote all these great notes, I got an email from Strava that Guy Patusek, I never know how to pronounce your last name. You'll have to tell me. He commented on something I had commented on of Marlon's. Marlon, you are famous today, on Strava. And it was about comparing a ride and not seeing progress from one ride to the next. You know, we had done a specific ride and this time we weren't as good. And there can be a huge variety of reasons. The things I was thinking, hey, Marlon, have you lost some weight? I think you have. Or in the context of your training, is this ride occurring in a harder period of training than it was last time you did it? Maybe you're more fatigued now, and that's the point of training. So Guy said this, and I thought it was great. I'll probably frame it and hang it on the wall. He said, when I've had a disappointing repeat ride, I'll go look at the training that preceded each ride. Usually there's more to the story. Key point, right? More to the story. And sometimes you just have an off day, which is also true. We're human. So getting on the bike and finishing are always an accomplishment. And I hope we all appreciate that, right? So just being here, showing up for yourself, committing to being consistent in our training is enough. It doesn't have to be a PR. And if you're always chasing PRs, you are never going to reach your potential. And you're going to drive yourself nuts. So, and I know it's hard. You put something on Strava and you're like, oh, I was out for a recovery ride today and I look so slow. Or my run includes, my warm up and my cool down and people are going to judge me. It doesn't matter. Fitness is about how you change your life, not the numbers, not what other people think. It's what fitness does for you. So anyways, sometimes comparison can be motivating, right? So when we looked at Alicia, who had a really nice jump from 2023 to 2025 in the same ride, that can be motivating. That's the long view. But then sometimes comparison is the thief of joy. I always feel like my mother or my grandmother when I say that, but it's true, right? We can't continue to compare all the time because it will drive us nuts. So anyways, I would say Marlon also writes really good feedback on every ride. How many of you actually think about your ride? And feedback as a coach is what helps us coach. And this is what I think the difference between AI and a human being is. So at least at this point, AI doesn't always get subtext. They don't understand how to read between the lines. Whereas a coach, if they are paying attention, are going to see trends. Are you delaying your workouts? Do you normally work out in the morning and you wait? Because you kind of really don't want to do it, but you don't want to tell your coach that. Or do you skip a workout? Or do you write notes about how bad a workout was or how fatigued you've been or whatever? Your coach should pick up on that. And granted, you don't all have a coach, but I'm happy to tell you when I read things. So sometimes when we write these notes, it's our cry for help to whoever is helping us, right? So it might be me writing a note to my coach last August saying, I'm getting kind of burned out. But I didn't say that, of course. But I was getting burned out. And it might be a note that basically just says, oh, I didn't do as well this time, but we're not going to do as well every time. And one note isn't a bad thing, right? So when I have a bad day, whether it's at life or training, that's not a trend. That's one point. And that's okay. We all have bad days. We didn't get good sleep. We ate something maybe that didn't agree with us. We had some stress in our life or our job or our family or whatever. One day is not a trend. But if it starts to become every day is frustrating me, or every day I feel like I'm not achieving what I should achieve, that's when I start to see that trend. That's when I start to say, maybe we need to back off. And the good news is we're going to back off. So I would highly encourage all of you after this training block to give yourself a little bit of recovery. Don't just jump in and go hard again. Do some things for fun. When I have athletes who go out and race and they've gone through their A race of the season, their most important race of the season, what is the next thing we do? We take a couple of rest days. And I often give them an unstructured block of training. It might be a week or two where just go out and move your body. I'm not going to give you a workout. This is not work. This is not a job. You're going to go out and remember why you like to ride your bike or why you like to run through the forest. So unstructured can be really, really good for us too. And again, it gives us a little bit of recovery where then we get to reap the benefit of all our training, which leads us into next week. So it's getting hard. We know it's getting hard. And that's good. And it's also challenging. And I bet some of you are really looking forward to a break after next week. And some of you are like, what am I going to do? I have to make my own stacks. I have to plan my own training. And remember, unstructured can be good. Do something different. Or spend some time with people you haven't been spending time with because you're training too much. So next Saturday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, we're going to do our Power Profile class again with Matt. And how should you take this? So first of all, I will say you will not be completely rested next week. We're going into this with a hard drive. So you may perform really well. Some people do. And these are short efforts. So the accumulated fatigue may not affect you as much as trying to do an FTP test when you're fatigued. But I would say, don't feel bad if you don't do as well as you think, or if it feels hard. Sometimes when things feel hard, you still perform very well. Lots of athletes are like that. So don't go into it with any expectation. What I would say is go into it knowing that there is no ceiling on your efforts. This is the class where you go hard. Not on everything, right? Recovery, take your recovery. But on the efforts, I want you to go for it. I want you to push. I want you to see what you're capable of physically and mentally. And the nice thing with the shorter efforts is they're not as mental, in my opinion, right? A 20-minute FTP is mental. Those threshold efforts. But when we're doing short, hard efforts, as long as you execute the way that you should, you're going to do well. So go into them knowing that it's going to be hard, that you're going to do the best you can do. And it may feel hard and it may not. And then what I would say is after you've done this initial benchmark test again, a week later, after you've had a little recovery, do it again and see how that ride feels different and see if maybe you have a different result. So that'll be during our break, an interesting comparison. During the break is also a good time, by the way, to take another FTP test if you haven't in a while. So again, we want some recovery in there. So not too much. We don't want to be stale. We want to do some things, but we don't want to create a lot of fatigue. So you're going to let your training load go down a little bit, your TSS go down a little bit. And so do your power profile again. So we'll do it next Saturday. And then I would recommend doing it a week or so after that. So give yourself 2 opportunities to smash some PRs or not. We'll see how your training was effective. That's about it. So again, my advice for next week is go for it. There is no ceiling to your efforts. Don't look at the graphs. Go by perceived exertion. Go hard. do what you can. If you blow up, who cares? You're in your living room or your basement or the garage. No one will see that. You can always do it again. So go hard. See what you're worth. See what you can do. I shouldn't say worth. It has nothing to do with worth. But see what you can do. You'll probably surprise yourself. That's about it for this week, for this challenge. The next challenge begins September 8th. I'm finishing up this week. It'll be awesome. It's going to be a little different. Registration, I think, is going to open next week. So that's not my job. I just have to put together a good program. And so registration will open next week, I think. And I hope you'll join us. It will be super fun. Yeah, that's about it. So we have another week to join our teammates on the leaderboard, to encourage each other, to inspire each other, to be social, and to commiserate. And I think that's about it. So think about comparison and how you fit into the context of that. Is comparison a good tool for you, or is it sucking the joy out of your efforts? So have a great week. Wow, that was quick. See you on the leaderboard. Bye.